All right. Caller 404, you are on the air.
All right. Hey, first I wanted to just say thank you for taking my question. Anyways, you were talking a little bit there about morality, and you seem to think that morality is about the way things ought to be. That's what philosophers talk about when they say whether something is moral or immoral. And your interpretive framework of determining good and bad is whether or not something is supernatural or natural. You haven't offered any justification for that besides it's all particles and naturalism. Well, in supernaturalism, it's still just particles, but there's a guiding force that you haven't given any sort of ontological justification of whether or not it is good or bad. I can just as easily say, well, this guiding force is bad as you can say it's good, because you haven't offered any evidence for your claim. Furthermore, any claim as to God being good automatically presumes a standard of goodness by which to measure him by and to determine that he is good, which is begging the question, because then you have to ask what's your standard, how you know your standard was good. And if we base that off of God himself, we cannot say we know God is good because we're measuring him based off the goodness quality that we assume he has, because that's obviously circular logic. You haven't offered any justification. These are all just claims. So I was wondering if you could exemplify quick and tell me about the fallacies you're making.
So it's not really fallacies. What else? So let me start with this. It's either something that's space, matter, or time, or something that supersedes space, matter, or time. That's it. It's either something that's space, matter, or time, or something that supersedes that, because we've got space, matter, and time right now. So if there's a supernatural, it's something that supersedes space, matter, and time.
What does that have to do with whether or not that supernatural force is good or bad?
Wait. I'll get to that. So do you believe that there is just space, matter, and time, or do you believe that there's something greater than space, matter, and time?
For me personally, I don't have any evidence to indicate either way, but I do identify as a moral nihilist.
Okay, wait. But space, matter, and time exists.
Space and time exists? Yeah, I would agree with that statement.
Space, matter. So all I'm saying, and I'll get some morality problem, but all I'm saying is space, matter, and time exists. So something that was greater than space, matter, and time brought space, matter, and time to exist. That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about
define greater right quick. We can say there's a cause before it, as to say greater would imply that it's more preferable to be in a possible world where that cause exists rather than one that's not. You're not giving me any justification for it being greater or not. You're only giving me the idea that it caused it.
Okay. How about this? I'll use the word. It has to supersede it in order to bring it to existence.
Define supersede right quick.
You can use a lot of words here, something that has dominion over it, or whatever you want to use. But here's my case. Space, matter, and time exists, and people call it Big Bang. There's a lot of things. But what I'm saying, for that to exist, you could call it cause, or you could call it whatever. Whatever caused it or brought it into existence had to be greater, had to have dominion over it, had to supersede it in order for it to be brought into existence. That's what I'm saying. That there's a force or a guide or whatever you want to call it. All I'm saying is space, matter, and time exists. So we know it exists. We know it happened. Somewhere in time it happened. So what I'm saying is there's something that made it happen, and what made it happen had to supersede the space, matter, and time, because that's what brought it into existence. It has to. Now,
I'm a construction worker, and I was paving a road the other day. I paved this road, so therefore I supersede it. So does it mean that then I can be a moral lawgiver to that road?
No.
And if so, no, I'm not done. And also, can you explain why the ability to mold something, the ability to have the power to influence and guide it indicates the moral righteousness of it, that this is the way things ought to be, that object is the one exerting its influence. You're making an is-ought fallacy.
Wait. The morality thing I was talking about, actually atheists talking about it, not me. I'm not saying this for this topic. I haven't even begun to say. I'm not saying this power is good. I'm not saying it's benevolent. I'm
pretty sure I just heard you talking about morality and talking about supernaturalists have morality, but naturalists do not. And I pointed out that neither of us do.
Wait. I'll get to that, and that was in reference to atheists themselves saying about society and we'll get to that. But here. Do you?
All right, so you want to argue the cosmological argument instead?
No.
I mean,
because that's the foundation. Do you believe that there's something that supersedes space, matter, and time? Yes or no?
I'm agnostic on the issue.
You're what?
I don't know. I mean, that's the bottom line. Not a very exciting answer, I'm sure, but I'm happy to hear your case.
Well, here's the case. If you're talking about it logically, then there is something that above space, matter, and time if it brought it into existence. There's got to be something that supersedes that. Well, it's existing right now. Something brought it into existence. Or are you saying space, matter, and time just happened?
Why do I have to think that it just happened? Why don't you explain to me, and I assume it's going to be something to do with the regress argument, that how it's always been. You're making a claim. You're not justifying it.
No. Well, I'm giving a logical argument. If space, matter, and time exist, it came into existence, then something that supersedes space, matter, and time made it come to existence. Point blank. Very clear.
Okay. If it came into existence, okay, I'll pretty much cut to the chase here. We know the cosmological argument. I've heard it a million times. You've heard it a million times. James, what you're going to posit is hold on, let me talk, man, please. Thank you, sir. Okay. A first cause, must have existed timelessly, eternally, in order to create it. It has to be uncaused, otherwise you have an infinite regress, and you never get to the present. I know the argument. And the problem with it is you have to assume that you have to assume determinacy. You have to assume that the universe has to have an explanation. Then you immediately posit a sort of entity that does not have an explanation. And by that concession, you immediately admit that events can occur without explanation. And so it immediately becomes a clear-cut violation of Occam's razor. Furthermore, if an infinite regress of events cannot exist, then an eternally existing God cannot exist because he exists eternally into the past, never gets to the moment of which he creates the universe. Theologians have got around this by arbitrarily, definitionally applying the term timeless without any sort of ontological justification. But the thing is at most they'll say that, it's unchanging, so there's no way to measure the time between the relational events, which is a complete argument from ignorance, and is a problem on the observer. Where two individual frames of existence can be 100% identical, and yet they can still temporarily exist. I've actually talked to William Lane Craig personally on this issue, and he confessed that if God had a sort of succession of thought, for example, counting 1, 2, 3, that would be sufficient for time. And the argument is then exemplified that I'm making. If we were to say that God was silent or said 1, 1, 1, we wouldn't be able to measure when or it didn't, where it started or it did not begin. But the fact that we can change the value and then know for certain that there is a distance of time completely destroys the argument.
There's no destroying any argument. I go back to my premise. You said a mouthful and you're going all over the place, but you still didn't address the premise. If you address the premise, it's very simple.
I did address the premise. I showed
you didn't.
I talked about how if there's a first cause, did nothing have to have an explanation?
I'll let you speak. Now let me speak. When I answered that question, your answer was, I don't know. That's your answer when I directly answered the question. You said, I don't know. Okay, correct. So you're saying I don't know. I'm saying logically, if space and time and matter exist, and it came to existence, something that supersedes space, matter, and time made it come into existence. That's a logical argument. You're saying I don't know. I'm making a logical argument.
And I just refuted that logical argument. I don't have to have a position myself in order to know that your position is illogical.
how is that illogical? What's the illogical?
Because as I just explained, and by the logic of the infinite regress in the first cause, you have to assume that that first cause exists without an explanation, which therefore means that things can exist without explanation, which therefore means that space-time can begin without explanation.
Okay, good to say. So space-time and matter began without any explanation.
By your logic, that's plausible. I don't think that's the case. I would think that other cases are stronger. But I'm saying the consequences of your syllogism,
hold on,
not mine.
Hold on. I said my thoughts. What do you believe, or what do you think?
I will admit I find the premise of the philosopher saying that an infinite regress of events cannot exist. I do find the merit in the argument. It does seem persuasive to me. But the problem is as I just argued about the temporality of God, I think that it's the only way that you can get away from the infinite regress is by having absolutely zero sort of precursory conditions at the start of your set. And that would, by removing all properties, you would be left with creation ex nihilo. Now, I think you and I would have common ground that neither of us would find that very satisfying. But that seems to be the philosophical
conclusion. It doesn't need to be satisfying.
I think that, hold on, one more sentence. And I think that highlights the real problem. We cannot be determining the cosmos by thinking hard about it. We need empirical evidence and scientific theories that make testable scientific predictions in order to determine the nature of space-time. We cannot just simply think really hard about it for a night and explain the entire universe. That's absurd. And if you do, I will argue that the conclusion is atheism.
I'm not saying that at all. I agree with you. This thing could go so many different ways, but the crux of it is what I said. Logically, scientifically, there's nothing proven scientifically. Yeah, if you're going down that route, I think it takes more faith to believe in that there is nothing. I think it takes more faith for no explanation whatsoever that this all magically happened or came together by some coincidence and is still going together and held together by coincidence, because if any inch of this universe was different, we wouldn't even exist. If this is all by chance, and Time just put an article out, that's like winning the Mega Millions every day for as much as the universe exists for all this to occur. Now,
okay, well, two thoughts. First, I just noticed you immediately jumped ship from the cosmological argument, because even though you insist that what your claim is logical, even though that you said something to me. Now let me go back. You said something to me, and you said it was logical, and then I offered my rebuttal, and I didn't hear any claim as to why what I called out as a fallacy in the special pleading, because the first cause exists without explanation. I did not hear a rebuttal to that. Instead, you jump shit to the teleological argument. So by all means, let's talk about the teleological argument. First, you're blatantly wrong about whether or not variables are changing. A single one would completely throw off everything. As long as you proportionally change the variables and keep them in a proportional sync, the universe and possibly life as we still know it would happen. For example, say we have two variables, 2 and 4. Now, if you change that 2 to 3, then the universe would collapse, so to speak. But if you go from 2 to 4 and instead you do 4 to 8 and you maintain that same ratio, then everything still happens functionally as far as the scientific theorems demonstrate. Now, furthermore, you said that's like winning the Mega Millions every day. That's actually the problem when you try and talk about the teleological argument and say, hey, well, it looks like this was too improbable to happen. One of my friends, he makes a good point where if you shuffle a deck 3 times, you look at the combination of cards from top to bottom each time you shuffle it, the odds are of you getting those 3 combinations are extremely minuscule. But you have to actually establish that getting that combination was a goal prior to shuffling in order to demonstrate, hey, that's too improbable to happen. You've given no argument as to what the possible world that we exist in is some sort of goal, so to speak. You just take it as self-evident that lies to the goal, but that's completely fallacious. Further,
That means,
it's an argument of retroactive improbability. And finally, my last point, if you look at the cosmos, you do not see something designed for us. If we're going to operate off the axiom that the universe is designed for something, we exist on the speck of a 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 speck in the universe. But we see dark, well, I guess we don't see, but we know dark matter's all over the place. We see billions of stars. You would sooner conclude that was the goal of the universe, that which seems to dominate it. You wouldn't assume us as a speck. That's my piece.
You're going all over this place. You're saying cards. You're going back to my original argument, getting cards to shuffle in the random. If you want to go back to that argument, then
by all means, address the original rebuttal, and then address the criticism. One argument.
Who made the cards? Who made
going all over the place, giving multiple criticisms at one point just shows your argument sucks. That's
all right, caller, I'm going to have to ask you to let him respond, caller.
Yeah. So that's it. Any analogy you're using, it goes back to the source. Who made the cards? Who made that a logical order should exist? Who made all that? You're going to get back to that, and that's my point. You can go spin off with different directions with this, but the crux of any argument we go through, or any debate, or anything else you want to explain, comes back to that point. A source. Is there a source for all of this or not? Is there a supernatural source for this or not? There's got to be a source.
I don't see any evidence.
There's got to be a source. If you're saying there is no source for any of this, then is this an illusion?
I don't believe I've said that or implied it in any way.
But okay. So you lost me now. Is there a source or not?
I don't know.
All right, well, caller, we want to thank you for calling in. Thank you. Thank you for calling in, caller.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having.
And I get, I respect.
So it's at this point I get kicked off. I couldn't make this up. I don't know what this guy's problem was, but after that they let him go on like a 30 to 40 minute monologue. I thought it was kind of unprofessionally done. I started off, giving my skepticism with the objective morality argument, and he couldn't really handle my criticisms. He said he'd handle them later. And so he jumped ship to a non-related argument. He goes to the cosmological argument. And I give my rebuttal to the cosmological argument. And he goes straight to the teleological argument without addressing those criticisms. And I show my skepticism with the teleological argument, and guess what? Did you guess that he would go to another argument? You guessed right. He went back to the cosmological argument without addressing my criticisms of the cosmological or the teleological argument, and I call him out on that. Then he starts to strawman me like crazy. Do you think the universe could be an illusion? What do you think the source of the universe is? Do you even think it has a source? I've clearly said I don't have any evidence for that position either way. I said we need scientific evidence for these sort of claims. And I get kicked off the radio. That just shows you the honesty of his ministry. And I'm glad that other apologetic ministries get paid attention to instead of his, because he's obviously dishonest and obviously disrespectful. I don't think that I was treated fairly on Blog Talk Radio, and I think you guys should keep that in mind about the sort of bias and the moderation that Blog Talk Radio presents.